What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on what if Deku was transported to danmachi part 8. Where we last left off, Deku and Bell had a training session, okay? During this training session, they encountered Obsidious, or the race known as Obsidious. Bell fought a weaker Obsidious, but eventually Deku fought what was akin to an Alpha Obsidious, a creature that he had never even seen before or knew how to attack. After a fierce battle between the two, with Izuku not really going full maximum power against it, the Obsidious was beaten, and Izuku, kind of took it for more akin to as a pupil, as the Obsidious adopted the name Vulcan. We will now pick up where we left off. So Deku heads back to town of Aurelia, with Vulcan following right behind him. Eventually, he meets up with Loki, and he's like, Loki-sama, I seem to have procured an issue. Loki's obviously very confused, because Izuku basically never comes to her, and for Izuku to come to her and say he has an issue is a scary thing in its own right. What's that, Izuku? You see, Loki-sama, I have seemed to, what appears to be adopted a student. It seems to be a monster, though. A monster? Then why did you bring back to the city limits? You know better. Yes, I know, but this monster seems to be first off, is intelligent, not a beast in any sort of way. So I don't think it should be treated that differently from a regular human. Okay, and why is this an issue then? If you seem like you have it all figured out and you have your point made clear. Well, Loki-sama, it's a issue for various reasons. As you can see, it's currently, not, how do I put this nicely? Izuku's stumbling and fumbling with his words, trying to think of, a nice way to say it's not allowed to live here, yet it won't stop following him. So, Loki sighs and says, I understand what you're saying, Izuku, but you're the one who decided to take it as a disciple. So, that is no one's fault but your own. You must fill in your own mistakes, not the other way around. I see, Loki-sama. I understand, Izuku says, realizing that he ain't gonna get any help worth shit from Loki. So after trying to convince Loki to help him, and Loki just not caring, cares, but just doesn't want to help him, eventually Izuku went to go find Bell that he had previously chucked without caring, but realized that might not have been a smart idea knowing his other protege's actions. He eventually found Bell, who was, funny enough, stuck in a tree, and helped Bell down. And after some light convincing, he convinced Bell that he didn't mean to purposely throw him, even though that was a complete and utter lie. After a while, he eventually found Vulcan just chilling back at the place where he had left him, and decided that now was the time to get to work. So, Vulcan and Bell, he says to both of them. He then starts to explaining how training's gonna go now that he had two proteges, and he started to explain that he'll start by teaching basic physical enhancement before then moving on to more magical base enhancement, which Vulcan agreed to automatically thanks to Vulcan seeing Deku as his master, and Bell agreed to as well, seeing how he sees Deku more akin to well, his idol rather than a master. So, without any much convincing, they both started to work on the new routine, and a couple weeks passed by just like that. With Belle also talking to Eyes every now and then and keeping their relationship pretty stable. Eyes was, of course, very much against Vulcan, but eventually, after a lot of prying from Izuku, warmed up slightly to Vulcan. It wasn't enough for her to be anywhere close to, well, allied with Vulcan, but it was enough to where in case of Deku asks Eyes to do it, she would do it, if it was something akin to needing to help Vulcan with something. And also not kill Vulcan on sight. That was a long journey for Deku and Eyes. Eventually, Deku and Eyes both went to the dungeon. They ended up coming across this weird plant creature deep in the dungeon. She seemed to be intelligent and talked about some lady inside the dungeon. They really didn't know much about it, but they didn't think much of it, or at least that was until they talked to Loki about it. They talked about Loki, and Loki instantaneously gave him the look of that they had spoken something evil, something bad even. And after inquiring for more about it, trying to see what was it, eventually she ended up stating that the creature or the god that they have heard of inside the dungeon by the creature was an actual, well, god. A god that went and disappeared a while ago and wasn't well known in its location to many of the other people who, well, was around. This confused Belle a little bit, especially because he didn't understand what it meant when no one knew where this person was. But then he started to put the pieces together. This goddess must be inside the dungeon. It makes sense. He has no clue where, but that must be what's happening. So he asked Loki what should he do to try to, well, attack and find this goddess, because obviously this is an issue. Loki looked at Belle, and Loki says, Izuku, and says, Izuku, I understand your feelings against this goddess is pretty strong, but you must remember, if you go after and try to attack this goddess, you would make an enemy of yourself out of the entire godly community. Not even my backing can help you with that. It would be smart for you just to lay low right now and not try to directly go attack the goddess. Izuku was confused, because usually Loki was the first one to go throwing punches when it comes to matters like this, but she told Izuku to back off. After giving a slight thought, though, he eventually came to the understanding that if he did just directly go ahead and go attack this random goddess, and word broke out that he killed a goddess, all gods would, well, not really like him that much because A, he killed one of their own kind, and B, that would be a very big detriment if he got away with it. And rather than wanting himself to die just because he had to pick a fight with a goddess because of what he had heard her do or did, he decided he can give it a break for now and not try to fight the goddess, even though it annoyed him slightly that he made this decision. So, he then decided to go ahead and continue training with Belle. That's what he did a lot these days. He did a lot of training with Vulcan and Belle, and eventually Eyes too, when Eyes came around to train every now and then. She came around to join in trading. It was a pretty pleasantable experience. And one night, while Belle was asleep, something felt off. Something felt different. He didn't know what it was, but it was almost like a dark energy had surrounded where he was at. He tried looking around, but he couldn't see anything. Everything was pitch black, almost like it was non-existent yet existing at the same time. It was a surreal experience, one that Belle couldn't even put a finger on, let alone anything else. Eventually, after some time, Belle woke up and thought it was quite weird, but decided not to care much about it. He ended up walking around town, something he hadn't done a lot, or at all even. And eventually he ended up finding something very weird. He found a newer location. This location seemed to be a tavern of sorts, and he walked into this tavern. He was very thirsty and didn't really want to, go to the not the hostess embrace, but the house of fertility. So he decided to go here instead, which was aptly named the hostess embrace. He entered in the tavern and got some drinks, and was having a pretty nice time. He laughed along with there were two waitresses. One of them was an older woman that seemed to be a female calanthrope, and it appeared to be her daughter as well, both being what appeared to be cat girls of sorts. Izuku already had a girl, though, so he really didn't pay much mind to them. He kept drinking and eating, and was just having a pretty well and good time. After a while, he had to leave. So he left after bidding a farewell and went along on his way. Eventually, he ended up coming across many new things. He also found a street that seemed to be full of crime of sorts. And Izuku thought that he needed to deal with it whenever he could. So he then decided to head back and continue training, which is all he did really. He just trained to get stronger and stronger, eventually breaking into level 5. Izuku was super strong compared to 85% of the other people. So strong that while he was walking down, eventually he saw a man. This man was weird, to say the least. He appeared to be quite old, having a long beard, and had what appeared to be a raven on his right shoulder. Which Izuku was very confused. He didn't know what this creature was on his right shoulder, other than it was a raven. The man spoke and he asked, "Are you Izuku Midoriya?" Which was really confusing to Izuku because he didn't understand how this man could even know that his name was Izuku Midoriya, let alone, see him. Or not see him, but know his full name. He hasn't told anyone his full name. Eventually the man kind of laughed and said, "Don't worry how I know your full name, young one. See, I have a talent to see things with my eye," he says, as he looks at Izuku. Izuku was starting to get on guard before the old man lifted up his hand and said, "Fret not, I am not here to attack you. Quite the contrary, honestly. See, I can tell that you have been easily dealing with your opponents here in this area. So I want to give you an opportunity. There is a city that nearly no one knows about, thanks to its secludency, and I want to invite you to it. This city is a city meant only for heroes. And seeing how you like to bear the title of hero, I would like you to join," the man said, before then walking away. Izuku was very confused and tried to follow after the man, but when he turned the corner, the man was gone, almost like he never existed in the first place. Izuku was confused, but just decided to stop caring He didn't even know what to think about it at this point, let alone to do about it. So Izuku just went on with his daily actions before eventually finding a nice bed to sleep in back at his house as he laid down and went back to sleep. That's where I'm going to leave this off, guys. I'm sorry that I just haven't uploaded recently. School's been rough, but summer's finally out, so you don't have to worry about me not uploading nearly as commonly. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.